point that out to you, Bill, and then we'll officially start in a moment. But yeah, that joy motif is, you probably heard it very clearly. It's just different keys. You just kind of, it's just more like a, kind of a, amp it up a little bit. Because the melody was, talk about the post-it here. That was in the manuals. But then occasionally the pedal would be like. So you had that in there, so yeah. I should play that again. This time not so.
Welcome to the organ recital. We are live.
Okay, well, hello. Nice little crowd today. And hello out there, people in TV land, as they used to call it. I was old enough to see that. If you need a seat or anything else, feel free to grab one or whatever you're comfortable with. Good to see you. So yeah, this is my last year at least, organ encounter. I like doing these. I've been doing this like twice a year. This is kind of, well, for one, as Bill here pointed out, just turn it around. What does that look like? I mean, I'm kind of in that corner.
No, let's just leave it like this. What do you think?
Recital mode. It's nice to have people see you. But that's kind of part of the reason. So, yeah, first thing, why is it back there? Well, I can see what's going on. That's the most important thing, is to see. Sometimes we use it with the choir. It's not ideal since I'm over here. You angle out a little bit. I really can't conduct from there. But then we have a conductor up here. You might notice Amy Welsh went up here sometimes and others to help with that. But I like to see the service and all. But yeah, this is what it looks like. So real briefly, and I'll get into my top 10 list. That's kind of the variation here today. I've done various topics over the years. But this time I'm just going to say, what do I like? Why do I appreciate the organ? Why am I doing this? This is kind of like, I equate it to playing like an accordion. Or maybe a ukulele, Stuart. Like, how does it come into your life, It's just one of those things. Guitar, well, sure. You hear something on the radio, I'll play guitar. I want to rock out, or you hear whatever inspires you, or play double bass, or whatever. But we'll get into that. So it's just an amazing instrument. So yeah, I've talked about the stops before, all kinds of things. But let me give a quick overview. Maybe that's good, since maybe some of you haven't been here before, have no idea what is this. I mean, am I going to fly somewhere? No, I'm going to play. So what it is, basically, on this particular organ, every single one's different. Not like a classical violinist or any classical musician who has that beloved instrument that they will never part with. That's their instrument. It's a synergy. We don't have that luxury unless you're playing it like here. I've been here almost 8 years. I know this organ well. Okay, that's nice. But if you're traveling around, you're playing a different instrument every time. So everyone's different, but this is basically, you'll see it says pedal, swell, grate, and choir. That's clearly pedal. The swell is here. That's because in the old days, a pipe organ might have this under what they call expression, behind the swell shutters. So when you open the shutters up with these pedals, it makes, you reveal the pipes, and so it gets louder. It's expression. It's like swelling. And that's usually for the top manual. The grate organ, that's like the biggest sounds of the organ. And so these are all sounds corresponding with each manual. These are the sounds available here, etc. here. Choir, as a name, can be called a positive at some places. It is usually, what's a quieter and more colorful kind of palette of sound. With the choir, because these pipes would normally, ideally, be placed near the choir. So you don't have to accompany the choir on these gigantic sounds that will drown them out, but these more colorful, quieter sounds that will support them. So it's basically 4 organs in one, and you can borrow sounds. For example, here's a reed, a French reed, very nasally reed. Well, let's say I want it over here. Okay, I can do that. I can borrow it with a coupler, swell to grate. Now it's here, so I can move it around like that, which is very helpful. It makes it the instrument more versatile. That's the basic idea. So that is what big piece of why I love the organ is because it has all these colorful capabilities and timbres. You're like a one-person orchestra, wherever you want it to be. The piano has the touch sensitivity. It's very much you're very connected with it. But it doesn't mean.
So you mean like if you press super hard on the keys, it'll get louder?
On a piano, yeah, because you're really, the hammer's hitting a string. This digital organ, and most organs are, well, most, but many, are what's called electro-pneumatic, or they're electric. In other words, when I push the key, electronically opens the pipe. So there's no connection with the pipe. Not to say that the organ is without expression. That's kind of like the generic thing. It's like a zombie. Well, no, you have to work a little harder, but you can make it work. But there is, real quickly, I'll get into this here, what's called a tracker organ. And that's the old school organ before electricity. So you're literally open the pipe by pushing a key, which means the more sound you add to this manual, for example, the harder it is to push. It's a workout. You know, with somebody with low tendinitis, I don't really, But it's nice to have that connection because you can open the pipe fast or close it fast, and it does create a bit of expression that way. There's a little bit of touch sensitivity. But I digress, but it's okay. I wanted to give you a little idea of what is all this. That's a basic, super basic component here. So, without any preference for order, this is just what came out, and I thought, what are the 10 things, and there's probably more than 10, why do I do this? So as far as the story, it was in my family. That's often how it works. I guess like the accordion might be the same way. With the ukulele, maybe if you're born in Hawaii, I'm referring to, by the way, Stuart Yoshida. Thank you for being here, Stuart. Handling the audio. Sen Wu-Tan's back there on hello. On live stream. It makes this whole event possible, but Stuart plays ukulele. He's from Hawaii. So there's that background. For me, it was in my family, like I said. My grandmother played on my dad's side, and then my father, my father's, I think it was his uncles played. But my mother in Finland, there's some prominent organists actually who play in churches there, of course, Lutheran churches. And so it just happens to be in the air. So I grew up in a Lutheran church, as a good Finn does. And so I saw this thing, and my grandmother taught me how to play at 7 a little bit on one of those home Hammond organs, not a B3. I wasn't, throwing it down at 7, but the little tiny pedal board, and so it kind of came out of that. Then I went to church, and I was like, well, what about that? It just seemed kind of interesting. And so maybe osmosis with the family history, I don't know, I started playing, but then went on my rock star path and playing bass and some keyboards, but none I'm back, But it's a fascinating instrument. But a big piece so there's that history of why, I don't know if I would have chosen it otherwise, so I'm grateful for that. But I love history, and the organ has some of the oldest repertoire in our entire repertoire of any instrument. Goes back to the Renaissance, on some of those like portable organs, court organs, they're very functional. When we think of like the pipe organ like this, German organs, North German in particular, then we're talking about 16th century, around there. But the music goes actually all the way back to the ancient Greeks. They actually had what was called a hydraulis, which was a pipes. So maybe not technically an organ, it had a couple keys, but it would generate sound through water running through a system that don't make me explain how that worked, but it would emit the sounds. They use it, I understand, at the Olympics, early Olympics, so it's kind of amazing. So yeah, we have that. But then, not going to play something we have no music from that era, clearly. But this is Svalek, Dutch organist, and it has a very different character. They didn't have really a pedal board back then, but we can do that. I love the historical aspect of anything, and I can play music that here is like, about 400 years old. And I played this based on a hymn, All Glory Be to God on High. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but just give you an idea of what that might have sounded like, maybe even back then, kind of a Renaissance-y, complete with this. We don't do this hymn, but in a Lutheran church we might. It sounds kind of like old school, right? Here. Renaissance kind of music. It's variations. So you might then get to something like this. So that melody you heard. And I just love playing this. We wouldn't really write this way anymore, unless we try to imitate this era. so I really enjoy that. It is. It's music. They wrote music back then just through a different lens, you know? So we can do that in the organ. And kind of similarly to that, the organ is kind of timeless, you know? No matter what year it is so far, and I hope it carries forward, the tradition of it, you know, the air going through the pipes, the breath of God, might have had a little more weight back in the day before electricity, before amplifiers, how you lead a congregation, you know, with an organ. Now, of course, we can do it with speakers, and we do that here. You know, it's a very diverse church, and I love that about Plymouth. But there's no reason to, this doesn't need to go anywhere, you know. It's part of our history, our Christian history. And so here, I'm going to play just a little bit of this, what I might play for a prelude, and I actually have. It's a modern piece called Largo, based on the tempo, the Largo tempo of it. It's beautiful. It's maybe like an aria, perhaps, like a classical aria. But again, this is written in 1996. So you can have history, tradition, and modernity, I use that word occasionally, all in one on this instrument. So for example, as you get people in a state of mind before the service, you might hear something like this. And just watch my these pedals here. Controls the volume. It can be very expressive. Listen for this melody. Just a little bit more. It's beautiful, you know? But when I was doing down here, I wanted to note that as far as expression of the instrument, you hear, I have these volume pedals. This left one corresponds to the grate and the choir. This is where I had the accompaniment. If you use those artfully, you can really be expressive, even though it has no touch sensitivity, like a piano. Then this one, this is the swell. So if you use those as a combination, you heard it just now, but you can go and kind of vary that just using your ears on what part of that texture, the accompaniment or the melody, maybe should come in, come out. And so you can be like a producer, you know, like music producer. Now here's a melody. Maybe here I want to emphasize this chord. Bring that back down. You know, so you can make it, you know, you can make music on this instrument. But I love that combination of just, again, history and modern sound. And then real quickly along those lines, plays as a postlude recently. This is based on a hymn that we know, but here. Here's a melody. Etc. You recognize a hymn tune, right? And that's using the big reed, the festival trumpet down here, and about up in the middle. So here's an example of an older hymn, a Welsh hymn, being used in a modern context, but still, it's almost like Hallelujah. It's old, new, all that kind of mixed together. And I mean, you can find that in other repertoire of other instruments, but the organ is very, I think, particular about that. And it's in church, it can be in church every week. And what an occasion to have all these wonderful tools and kind of musical aesthetic week to week, in addition to everything else you do. So that just gives you an idea. But hymns, you know, singing old hymns, and, you know, done in more modern ways. I do a lot of reharmonizations here. You've heard that, and the jazz and things like that, to bring it to hit you a little differently. You know, always letting the text drive those decisions. Then there's just the versatility, which you've heard, all this kind of bleeds into each other. But this instrument, I mean, you think of organ, you know, you're thinking, that's all well and fine, okay? okay, but you know, it's not. It can be way more than that, of course. But you know, if you're just a layperson and maybe not go to church, you might not know that. But for example, I mean, like I mentioned, jazz right now. You see if you recognize this hymn tune. This is by William Balcom. It's right here. Jesus calls over the tumult, but an example. Just a little bit of this. Etc. So, do you recognize that hymn tune by chance? Jesus calls over the tumult. Jesus calls over the tumult. Completely transformed, made even more intimate, in my opinion, with the jazz harmonization here, and in the unenviable key of 6 sharps. So it's not sharps. It's quite an amazing work by William Balcom, Pulitzer Prize winning composer. But yeah, so that's a hymn. That's what it can sound like in the 21st century church. But then, of course, you can go back, because we can, to something like this. This is Bach, the Fantasia. I'll play a little bit of this. This is kind of goes back to like the Toccata Fugue in D minor. But this is all our awesome. But you know, you can do that kind of blast from the past, and it's amazing music, you know. But you get the idea. You know, I played that on Reformation Sunday. And there's a fugue that goes with that. Hey, this is amazing stuff. You know. Yeah, for sure. But once you hear this. I mean, it's on, right? But you can do that, and it's all part of the service. Then you maybe something like Mendelssohn is a completely different character. So I'm just talking about all the versatility of this. This is 19th century. His second organ sonata. This is the Allegro Maestoso. I played that as a postlude. And the idea that you can play what's secular music, in church, that goes to what I love about Plymouth, is this kind of search for the sacredness in all things. In the 6 p.m. service that we used to have, that became the 9 a.m. service, which is now more of a blended service at 11. That's been a big interest of mine, but it predated my time here. It was a big draw to come here. And that's what I do with that, because all music has an affect. I mean, it is subjective. I mean, some might call that, I don't know, I guess you could say, well, it's kind of grim, I don't know. Maybe because I'm the Oregon, you don't like Oregon, so that's how you see it. You know, I mean, there's a subjectivity to it. I think it's kind of a minority. I mean, if you hear that, that sounds pretty joyful, right? And I always look at the postlude, usually, as a kind of a musical exclamation point. This is how I, program. So, it's like joy. Usually, it depends. There might be a particular Sunday, like in Lent, that might go a different way, and I've ended quietly before. But, form follows function at the end of the day, as far as worship planning is concerned. And a piece like that can appear. And I think the organ does a great job at being kind of esoteric. Again, the versatility of the instrument, but it has to do with the timbres and mystical, which is great for worship. And for me, and I think a lot of people, you go to the French. I don't know just how it have to be, but I'm drawn to it. This, for example, this is called Chant de Pas. Anybody who speaks French, can pronounce French, can correct that. But Song of Peace is what's important. Does this not sound like peace? It's amazing music and the harmonies as well. But maybe one, and again subjectivity, that one composer that takes it maybe the furthest is Olivier Messiaen, a 19th century composer. That was Jean Laglais by also. I play this sometimes at Maundy Thursday. And the piece is The Celestial Banquet. It's based on John 41:6. Or 14:650, I can't remember which one exactly. It's in French, but it's the verse of the scripture that goes, "Those who eat my flesh and drink my blood may have eternal life." And so this was his impressionistic depiction of that moment of the Eucharist. He was a mystic himself. If you don't know too much about Messiaen, Catholic, so he had his own kind of theology around it. But still, that space, especially in Holy Week, if you're going with that solemnity of the, especially the Triduum, the last 3 days, I find this to be very useful for that. It certainly conveys a mood. It's very slow. I'll take it in parts, but again, the capability of the organ to bring this kind of affect to life, I think it does a very good job at. Stop right there. It's a 7-minute work. And we hit that first chord, it's actually slower than that. I'm thinking eighth notes. Bum, bum, bum. No one else knows what's going to happen. You think I'm just holding the chord down. But as it unveils and it gets to this part, then you figure, oh, I hear the tempo now. It's supposed to depict eternity. It's very symphonic, don't you think? And this pedal part comes in, which is very unusual. there. I think it makes his point, doesn't it? Messiaen makes his point. This pedal, it at one time was considered maybe, people trying to figure out, because it's an impressionistic piece, so what does it represent? Perhaps it was like the drops of blood of Christ dripping. He dispelled that rumor. But this is his first piece that's published. He considered it a simple little thing, you know. He's very intense. But again, this is what the organ can provide, particularly in a service. So that aspect, the ability to multitask, obviously with all these different manuals and such, you can have different tones, play different parts of a piece, and it can be very distinct. I've already kind of demonstrated that with accompaniment in one hand, and then a solo on the other. But Bach contrapuntal music that is especially nice for that because you're hearing this interplay between all these different parts, and you can actually have different sounds. I could have brought a trio sonata, I suppose, that would demonstrate that. Bach's written some amazing trio sonatas, meaning one sound in one hand, another sound in another hand, and your feet play another hand. So it's a trio, and you're your own trio, and those are very difficult, and it will take you far. But it's amazing music. So I thought instead I'll do, here we go, change sounds. And that's what I'm doing, by the way, what I just did now, but I changed what's called a memory level here, and it allows all of these to have a different set of stored sounds, like in summon. So you have to just watch me. Okay, hold on. Let me, I pre-planned this. But here, you have this old hymn, written by Martin Luther, actually, We All Believe in One True God. Here's the main motif. Somewhat like a hymn tune melody, but watch what Bach does with this. So you hear it here, the left hand, the soprano takes it. And so it's how you play the organ, as far as your articulation, you can bring out those parts. And sometimes in other works, like a fugue, the pedal would play that. I could go. And there are works like that, but here he does a little something different. It's kind of similar to the postlude. I almost played this today as a postlude. He has this other pedal part that comes in that, I don't know, it could maybe perhaps joy, like in the postlude I played where the pedal, all it did was. But here it's. It does it in various keys. So putting it all together, the hymn tune and this kind of counter melody, you have something like this. On from there, but you're able to do that with a reed. And a reed, particularly reed, is like that buzzy sound. If I were to solo that out, like a trumpet, and it's just fun to once in a while use this at Easter. A subwoofer, contraband, French reed down there. But yeah, there is. So I'm looking at the time. I'm going to move on here.
Excuse me, what's
Sure.
the name of that piece?
That was it's called Wir glauben allen einen Gott. Which means we all believe in one true God. And it's a musical paraphrase of Martin Luther's original hymn of the Nicene Creed. That's a good, how should you say, Reformation Sunday piece for sure. Then I mentioned timbres, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper into that. And I would say, there's a few more I have. The timbre is probably the main reason why I love this instrument. I love piano, and the touch is great. You do so much color with just your hands, and I love the direct contact. This is a whole other animal, and there's a piece I played maybe a month ago, Lied to the Flowers, Song to the Flowers, and I like the flowers, but like the German Lied, it's German, Lied is German for song, written by Flor Peters, and so he He was on tour, I think it was late 50s, I think that's right, in California, and he's from Belgium, and was really taken by just all the flora and the flowers. He thought, I'll write a piece. He would actually call it a lead symphony. There was there's basically glorification of nature, lead to the sun, lead to the ocean, to the mountains. I played that here, of course. This is lead to the flowers. So what's great about this, he gives specific registrations, that's these sounds to use, to indicate all the different colors of the organ as relating to the different kind of flowers. Not necessarily specifically, but just to show you what the organ can do that no other instrument can, unless you're playing it like a synthesizer, a keyboard, for sure. It's very similar. This is what it kind of sounds like, and here's the capabilities I have. So this is the main theme, original theme, but listen to the colors of it. If I were to carry on, I got this. You have that change, and then it changes even again. And so this main idea is treated to all these different, colorful, tonally, I should say timbre-wise, all these different kind of colors come in, but also musically, the way he treats that. And then later it comes in like this. Is that right? Hey, 1 second here. Okay. It doesn't matter. We'll skip that one. I guess I screwed that up. But you get the idea. Here, then later, you hear the same idea. And as this piece goes on, you're hearing these constant changes throughout, and I think it's just very interesting. Then you have this hymn version. End bit here, I really enjoy. I can control the accompaniment with my right foot, volume-wise. I'll just end it real quick. I'll end it a little sooner. And one of my favorite things to do is have this slow 32-foot flute. Yes, it's satisfying. You hear that? That little subwoofer kind of cradles it. But all these things you can do on the organ. And it just brings this out, this beautiful piece, and as it relates to the colors of the organ to the colors of the flowers, it becomes much more visceral and somewhat impressionistic. Of course, it's a challenging instrument. I'll just kind of go through with these. I love that. The repertoire is amazing, of course. I think so. The piano repertoire, you have Chopin. It's not a competition by any means, but as far as where I want to put my focus, this is what it looks like, by the way. Like the Vidor Toccata, of course, is the one. That's the one. There's many great pieces, but French toccatas in general are incredible. But to be able to just sit here and go ahead and do something like, I'll jump ahead here. Oh, seriously. Here we go. very fun, you know? Yeah.
Do you know what you're going to be playing the last Sunday?
Langlais piece called Song of Joy. I love Jean Langlais, and I know you know that one, Hermie. And it just is a fantastic, just onward.
Swan song.
And not even just for me, for it's it's a little overlap. I'm going to be honest, but I mean, it's also just carry on, people. Like I said, it's fun. But I love that, especially the service orientation. I'm looking at the time. I'm aware, and I kind of some of this has been already overlapped on how a piece can be very artful, and it's very important. I think I'll say not just to me, but I think it's very important that we have artistry in a worship service. We're aspiring, to greater heights in our human condition. Why should not the audio follow, if possible? And even if it's just not even just the performance, how it works, we do our best, I mean, I make mistakes. I mean, the postlude I played was like way too quick. I was thinking about what's coming up. I played it about like 10 beats faster. It's like, no, I can't really play that. But it's hey, we're human. That was fine. But for example, here, let's see if you can recognize a hymn tune again. And I've done this before. But this is a particularly artful piece. I've played it before. Toccata on How Firm a Foundation, the hymn, by Craig Phillips. And let's see how this goes. I'll just do a little bit of it. Let's just pretend that we sang this hymn as the last hymn, and then this follows. It just takes it further. And that's what I love about organ, is how well, and they obviously figured this out hundreds of years ago, it works in a worship service. And of course, the breath of God idea, but we don't have the breath, just our own. That's fine, it's good, right? But it doesn't come from the pipes. But we have that, it's just lofty. It's a lofty instrument. It can be intimate, it can be bombastic, it can be a lot of things. It can be everything. And I love that versatility. But let's just say you're done singing this hymn, How Firm a Foundation, and then this happens, which it has. Go on. And there's all these different variations on that hymn. It just takes it further out. You can play on a piano, but it's not going to be the same. It's just not. It's not about what's better. I'm just saying, let's keep this going in some form. It's worth it. It's worth our humanity, in the worship experience, to have an organ. And you can have, I love the diversity in Plymouth, but this is part of that diversity. It's a beautiful instrument in the repertoire, what you can do with it. And I mentioned, the repertoire, and it's just a fun instrument to play. Give me a favor, Con. Can you grab that white folder? I'm sorry, if that's okay. The physicality of it, and even the handoff is great. Thank you so much. The physicality of the instrument is just fun. And sometimes it's a little frightening, if you're tired in the morning or you play something too fast, you're dedicated to it. But it's still fun, and quality matters. But you just go for it. It's just very satisfying, just as a musician, I'm not gonna play the whole thing, but to just play. And I think it's dancing too. It's kind of like dancing, and you have to feel that dancing effect on a pedal, or you're not making music, you're just pushing buttons, I'll just end with this. In Thee is Gladness is the postlude I played, and a more bum, bum, bum. How about that tempo? Here's a little bit of that. You'll see, it's just a lot of fun to play. right? Yeah, but I want to point something out first, though. That's the melody. And then the pedal later comes in. As Bill and I were talking about a little bit. So we put that together, I'll play just that much. You know, it's just fun to. And then later, and my favorite part, maybe, is towards the end where it goes. And the pedal goes. You give a little trail, it's so fast. I think we kind of all fudge it. But the ending, I'll just play the ending then. To the effect of. But anyway, yeah. Okay. So thanks for coming. And I'm going to take a few questions. I know it's a little later, but go ahead. Anybody?
Oh, of course. So, from my perception, which is somewhat limited, this is a pretty fine electronic organ.
I think so. What's kind of the biggest clue for me is the sound of the reed. Particularly the trumpet or the old trumpet in particular. And what I mean by that, I mean, you are replicating. There are samples on this organ. So you are getting actual, I think for the most part, this is in 2006, but you are getting actual sounds of organs. Maybe not as great of an effect as some of the other digital organs I've played. So which is nice, you're hearing a recording of it. But the reed sometimes is completely digitized. It can sound like a kazoo, like which is kind of annoying. But here, on the trumpet, it's good. I mean, it sounds like and that's a French trumpet, so you're having that nasally as opposed to the French language. Kind of makes sense. Kind of interesting, actually. Coronation. I mean, that's how they're thinking. They're used to so the reeds have that kind of, as opposed to the more German reed, or more like English, more smoother. You kind of like it matches your voice. So yes, to your question, it's a pretty good instrument. That's more like English
So what
tuba.
do you see as the differences between pipe organ, good, decent pipe
Yeah.
organ, and an electronic?
Yeah, well, you can really feel the wind, and when you're pressing the key, I mean, you can really feel the. Yeah, it is. It's you can hear the clicks. Not because that's some kind of I need to hear clicks, man. But it just sounds more alive. I mean, there's breath going through the pipe. This is an on-off switch. I've been in bands where I play keyboards. That's fine. To me, it's always about the music. It doesn't bother me, but it's a whole different animal. Like where I'm going in Madison, First United Methodist Church. It's magnificent.
So you're going to have to readjust.
It's a pipe organ, yeah.
They do. Have you played the one here at First United Methodist?
Yeah, I played it for a few memorial services there. Yeah,
I mean, it's like,
yeah.
I was even going to ask this very silly question.
No.
There aren't actual pipes in the digital.
No, they're not. You can have hybrid organs. My last organ in Cincinnati was a hybrid digital and pipe organ because I didn't want them to pull it out. And so that particular example didn't work quite as well. But I played hybrid organs where you have just like a sound, hybrid and digital. Digital filling the blanks of usually some of the bigger pipes. A 32-foot pipe, that's quite an investment. Where you gonna put it? So you have like a speaker for those sounds, but it can work. But here it's completely electronic.
It's beautiful.
It really works well, and the room is the other component too. Me right now, while I'm speaking to this mic, we don't have much carpeting. Thank you, whoever.
Oh, is that good?
Very much, just for basic acoustics, yeah. Down the middle, that's fine. People walking down, But if you have wall-to-wall carpeting, I mean, it's,
What does
you-
it
very-
do? Matt?
it deadens a room, so the sound just kind of goes, you know, but if you can at least have the chancel there. But here we have almost everything. If you look around under the pews, yeah, it's great.
Sounds beautiful.
It does sound nice in here.
Two things. One, that last one, it's a hymn, parts of it are hymn.
Yeah.
I don't think we sing that hymn.
Not here, no, German hymnal,
So we don't know it.
or Lutheran hymnal, that's right.
It harkens back to something we don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, the church I came from, we had a hybrid organ, so they had to tune the electronics with the pipes,
that's right,
change the temperatures, so they tune once it gets to the field.
that's right. It's tricky.
Yeah, it's tricky.
It is tricky, that's the thing, and that was part of the reason. Because the outside wall where the pipes were, just my last church, was facing the sun, so it's just like a losing battle. You know, I mean, it would just kind of heat up and expand or shrink. Yeah.
Is there a pipe organ where you're going?
Yes. Yeah, it's about 3,500 pipes, 57 ranks, which means 57 of these specific stops. It also has its 4 manuals. It has a antiphonal organ, which is doesn't have a manual, but some of the pipes are in the back. You know, so I have like something sitting here. I have pipes here, and I have pipes over there, and so I can kind of ping pong around like that. We kind of have that as well. Real quick, if you look back there, you see underneath those lights, those blinding lights. We have these speakers. That's our antiphonal organ. So I have occasionally done things like that. Let's get like a, yeah. Let's see, where's that? There you go. Yeah, it is. It's much nicer with here we go. Now we're talking. So you can kind of throw it back and forth like that.
Have you done that?
I have, yeah. Not too much, but I have done that for a few things. Yeah, just make it impactful. Sound like, oh, he's going back there again. But yeah, just yeah. Yeah. That's right.
For electricity, how was the air piped through the pipe?
They had people pumping it. They had bellows. They had at least 2 people. They take turn. The organist did not have to do it. We don't have to be that good, you know. But like a pump organ. I played a pump organ before. But then you had no pedals, you know. Clearly, you know. Well, those are your pedals. But yeah, they have a team back there. They'd be real even. So like at box day, there's not pictures, but like drawings of him playing. And then you go behind the wall. These guys are like, dude, just
Oh my goodness.
not enjoying life here.
Mark, in terms of the speakers up here,
Yeah.
I'm assuming they are intentionally,
I think so,
Put it
yeah.
on there.
Yeah. And we have a big subwoofer over there, like to the right of the pulpit. I know that, I think that's a 32-foot pedal. I know we're running a little over. Thank you back there. We'll be done in about 5 minutes. We started a little bit late. And yeah, but there is that speaker next to the pulpit. Shall we find out together? I think it's hooked up. Yeah, it's over there.
That's the one.
Confirm, Bill? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Especially if you're up here.
That's that 32-foot resultant. Sounds mighty. Yes, please.
Yes, I think your grandmother would give you a standing ovation.
Yeah, it's been, she passed 23 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 23 years ago. But yeah, she was, she got it started, you know. Her brother, Ted, wasn't a church organist, so he played a pipe organ. She did not. You know, my first music was polkas. She loved polkas, so like beer barrel polka. Roll out the barrel fun, anybody? Dun, 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 dun. But that got my foot going. There's those tiny pedal boards, about like an octave and a half, so you had to go boom, boom, like 1 foot. So my left foot is actually better than my right to this day. If I make a mistake, it's my right foot.
did she ever play In Heaven There Is No Beer, That's Why We Drink It Here?
Maybe.
That's a polka.
She should have.
Was she born in Finland?
No, she was born here, but it's interesting on both sides of my family. So my mother's born in Finland, and everyone else, and my dad, his grandparents were born in Finland. So there's just a handful of people in this country. So I'm like a stranger in a strange land, kind of, but not really. But
I wanted to say on behalf of some choir members and bells and all the people, I'm the only one I've known here. Totally appreciated your talent and patience.
It's been a pleasure, but are there any other hands just for the last few minutes?
I would just like to say I'm very new here. Haven't come very often.
What's your name?
Carol Day is my name.
Carol. Nice to meet you, Carol. I was going
And
to say.
I am very sorry you're leaving. I have to say, oh my gosh, I come with my son and I'm so sorry he's leaving. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, thank you. I
I can
appreciate
say that because I'm new.
Yeah.
I'm sure Betty will feel that way.
Road trip to
Have you
Madison.
always played in churches?
Yeah, since I've been 10, I always did.
Oh, wow.
And then even when I was doing my rock star thing, which is fantastic, I always played church still, in some state or another.
Well, that's amazing.
Well, I assume your new church will have televised services?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll give you. There's a link put out. But I'll give you another link. I'll
Right.
put the last
Good,
email out.
good.
Because I think I'm looking around here. Most of you are in that email I sent out with to the concerts and such. How did that go? Did it go well yesterday?
It went well.
Yeah, that would be the Silvertones and.
Yeah, I flipped 3 pages instead of 1.
Oh yeah. The beauty of performance. I've never done 100% perfect. That would be strange and almost kind of creep me out a little bit. Like, what? Oh, no, that's new standard. I can't do that. Anyways, well, glad you enjoyed. Any other questions on the organ before we go off?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll ask one more question.
Sure.
Like the Doors, Queen had organs, but like modern music doesn't seem to have the king of instruments. What the heck? Like, if it's so flexible, if it is so versatile, why isn't it more present?
Maybe recordings, but more like in the 70s. I love like the progressive rock stuff, the Yes and Genesis. Yes, definitely used pipe organ. You had Rick Wakeman there, who was like a concert pianist anyways, He played Carnegie Hall, I guess I'll join Yes. That came after that. They used a song called Awaken. Anybody know that by chance? On Going for the One, 1977. And that pipe organ you hear is the actual pipe organ recorded in church. But then you have keyboards, Even back then, of course, they weren't as good, but now they're amazing. So, you could just do that.
So keyboards have really taken over with the MIDI technology.
Oh, sure.
So you can have a MIDI guitar, MIDI xylophone.
Yeah. I mean, anything can sound like anything. You just,
It's not like
it really, it's like,
Something though about this and pipes.
Yeah.
Playing in this facility, this kind of,
I agree.
and the space is part of the instrument.
yes.
It certainly is. It certainly is. I mean, this is a little more portable, but like in all those churches or like party board, it's going nowhere. It's built in the wall. The console might be movable if it's not a tracker organ, which is gives that flexibility to move the organ anywhere. But yeah, and I also just one more thing to your question as far as organ. The movie, you ever see Interstellar? The movie Interstellar. That's a pipe organ soundtrack. And Jonathan Nolan, amazing. I love. What's that one movie with the dreams? Anybody? He did it earlier than that. Christopher Nolan, his brother's Jonathan, they wrote together. Anyways, I can't remember right now. But yeah, that's a pipe organ soundtrack. He just felt like that kind of, to him, symbolized space. And some lucky organists got to do that. But you're right, it's in church and concert halls, I'll just say this, where I'm going at Madison, the organ's a really big deal. I mean, there's I forget what it's called, but it's a concert hall. And they have organ recitals there with a couple thousand people attending for organ only. Wow. So it reminds me a bit of like Cincinnati and Cleveland culture. I mean, we have it here. What's up?
In Fort Collins, they have that kind of thing.
Well, Joel Bacon does an amazing job here and do it.
And Halloween is the biggest.
The Halloween thing.
It's the organ recital on Halloween.
Don't they have something
Yeah.
during the summer though as well?
There's an organ week, and look out for that. But I'll tell you what, we can keep chatting after this, but we're going to end the live stream here. Thank you all and for coming. And stay in touch. Support this guy. It's worth it. Good day, everybody.